The message came in at 2:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. Just 10 words, and my entire marriage collapsed. I'm leaving you for my 21-year-old girlfriend. I took the money, ha ha ha. I stared at the screen, sitting alone in my Manhattan home office. 15 years of marriage ended with a text message and a mockery. But what Mark didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for months. I'm Lena James, and this isn't the story of a heartbroken wife. It's the story of how I turned betrayal into strategy and walked away with everything. My name is Lena James. I'm 41 years old, and I work as a financial advisor for Bridgeview Financial. I've been there for over 15 years. I really thought I was building a life with my husband, Mark James. I believed our marriage was solid. We had a lovely house in one of Chicago's nicest neighborhoods, joint savings accounts, retirement plans, and what I thought were shared dreams for the future. But as I read that message again, I felt something odd. Not sadness, not shock, just a strange calm, almost like relief. Because while Mark thought he was delivering the final blow, he had no idea what he had just walked into. I placed my phone down on my dark wood desk, right next to the legal documents I was reviewing before his message popped up. The timing was almost funny. Spread across my desk were asset protection forms, trust agreements, and financial statements, documents that showed a very different picture than what Mark thought he knew about our money. 3 months ago, I started seeing warning signs. Credit card bills with charges from fancy restaurants Mark claimed he visited while working late. Jewelry receipts for items I never received. Phone calls that ended quickly whenever I walked into the room. The usual signs that every advisor warns their clients about when talking about protecting assets in rocky marriages. But I'm not just any advisor. I help people protect their money from exactly the kind of situation I was facing. So when the red flags showed up, I didn't cry or confront him. I did what I'm best at. I protected what was mine. I picked up my phone and calmly typed, "Best wishes." Then I smiled. Mark had always looked down on my job, calling it a cute little career instead of realizing I manage millions of dollars in client assets. He never paid attention to the financial systems I built. He didn't care to learn how the protection plans worked. He had no clue that I wasn't just good at handling other people's money, I had been protecting ours, too, just not the way he expected. I leaned back in my leather chair and thought about how we got here. Mark and I met 16 years ago at a cookout hosted by friends. He was confident, smooth-talking, and worked in commercial real estate. Back then, I had just started my career at Bridgeview Financial, trying to prove myself in a male-heavy field. Our relationship started sweet and simple. He brought me flowers, took me to nice places, and talked about building a future. A year after we started dating, he proposed, and it felt like a dream come true. We bought our house 2 years later, a beautiful 4-bedroom in Lincoln Park, with old trees and a view of downtown Chicago. For a while, everything seemed perfect. We hosted parties, traveled to Europe, and talked about having kids one day. His business was growing, and so was my career. We combined our money, opened joint accounts, and made what I thought were shared financial decisions. But looking back now, I can see the signs I ignored. Mark always left financial decisions to me when it came to investing or long-term planning. But he never truly cared. He just nodded when I explained things like tax planning or investments, his mind clearly somewhere else. I thought he trusted me, but the truth was he just didn't want to deal with it. As long as money was available when he needed it, that's all he cared about. The first real crack in our marriage showed up about a year and a half ago. That's when Mark started working longer hours and said he was chasing bigger deals in real estate. He also got secretive with his phone and guarded his laptop. Started guarding his laptop. When I suggested we update our estate planning documents, he kept putting it off and making excuses to avoid meeting with our lawyer. Then came the changes in spending. I saw charges on our joint credit card that I didn't recognize, fancy dinners at restaurants we had never visited together, hotel stays in New York City, even though Mark said he was meeting clients locally. When I asked about it, he got defensive. He accused me of not trusting him and said I was being too controlling with money. That's when my professional instincts kicked in. In my job, I've seen this happen so many times, where one partner finds out too late that their spouse was planning to leave. By then, retirement accounts are drained, properties sold in secret, and credit lines maxed out. I had helped so many clients rebuild their lives after that kind of betrayal, and I knew the signs well. So 3 months ago, when Mark's behavior became too strange to ignore, I made up my mind. I was going to protect myself the same way I protected my clients, quietly, carefully, and 100% legally. I started with a simple phone call to my attorney, Nina Lee. She's a specialist in family law and asset protection. We had been friends since law school, and I trusted her completely. We met for lunch at a small quiet cafe downtown. I told her what I suspected about Mark. "Lena, you're smart to act now," Nina said as she stirred her coffee. "Too many people wait until it's too late. What do you want to do?" I told her my plan. We would create irrevocable trusts to hold our biggest assets, the house, our investments, and my retirement funds. I had been the main earner for the last 5 years, thanks to my success at Bridgeview Financial, and Mark had relied on my income for most of our major purchases. That gave us a legal reason to build protections around the money. Nina explained, "These aren't hidden assets. Everything will be on the record and completely legal. We're just making sure that marital property is safe from being misused or taken unfairly." So over the next 2 months, we moved everything into protective structures step by step. The house, mostly paid for with my income but listed in both our names, was moved into a trust with me as the main beneficiary. Our investment accounts, worth nearly $800,000, were put into special trusts. My retirement accounts, worth over $400,000, were also secured with legal protections. The best part was Mark never noticed a thing. He had never paid attention to our financial paperwork. He always left the boring money stuff to me. When bank statements came, I reviewed them. When documents needed signing, I handled it. His lack of interest, which used to annoy me, was now working perfectly in my favor. The only thing we left untouched was our joint checking account. We kept around $15,000 in it to cover monthly bills. To Mark, that account was our entire financial world. He had no idea it was just a small slice of what we actually had. During this time, Mark's behavior got even stranger. He started saying he needed space and mentioned taking a solo trip to Los Angeles to look at new business chances. He bought new clothes, signed up at a fancy gym, and got obsessed with working out. All the warning signs were there. But I just went on with my day, reviewing financial papers, meeting clients, and secretly locking down our future. 3 weeks ago, Mark told me he was going on that trip to LA. He left for a week, and during that time, I finished every last piece of our asset protection plan. When he got back, he was cold and distant. At dinner, he barely said a word. I knew something was coming. What I didn't expect was that he'd be so careless about how he delivered it. A text message after 15 years of marriage. A text message with internet slang at the end. Now, sitting in my office, reading his message again for the 3rd time, I understood something clearly. Mark had just made the biggest financial mistake of his life. I spent the rest of that Tuesday afternoon working like nothing had just happened. I reviewed my clients' portfolios, returned phone calls, and sat in a team meeting about our quarterly numbers. My coworkers at Bridgeview Financial had no idea that my whole personal life had just collapsed from a single text. Around 6 p.m., my phone started ringing. Mark's name flashed on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again, and again. By the 5th call, I finally picked up. "Lena, we need to talk." Mark's voice sounded tense. It didn't have that usual smugness I was expecting. "I thought your text said it all," I replied calmly, still sitting at my desk. "You're leaving for Los Angeles with your girlfriend. You already took our money. What more is there to say? Look, I know it's sudden, but I've been unhappy for a long time. This isn't just about Bella. She just made me realize what I really want in life. I deserve to be happy, Lena. We both do. Bella. So that was her name. I quietly made a note of it and kept my tone even. I see. I hope LA works out for you. He went quiet. So quiet I thought the call dropped. Then, finally, Mark spoke again. This time his voice sounded confused. You're taking this really well. I thought you'd be, I don't know, more upset. What would you like me to say, Mark? That I'm heartbroken? That I'll beg you to stay? We're adults. If you found someone who makes you happier, then be with her. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you're being mature about this. I was afraid you'd try to make things difficult. I nearly laughed at that. If he only knew how hard things were about to get for him. I have no interest in making anything hard. You made your choice and I accept it. So, when are you leaving? Actually, I'm already in Los Angeles. I flew out this morning right after I sent that text. Bella and I are apartment hunting in West Hollywood. It's amazing out here, Lena, the weather, the energy, the lifestyle. I should have done this years ago. So he was already gone. Already living it up with what he thought was our money. That's great. I'm happy for you both. Then his tone changed. More serious. There's just one thing. I'll need access to our other accounts. The joint checking account I emptied was enough to get us started, but we need more. We need a deposit for a good place and to settle in here. There it was. The moment I had been waiting for. What other accounts, Mark? A long pause. What do you mean? The savings accounts. Our investments. The money market fund. Everything. I know you handled all that stuff, but I'm still entitled to half. I smiled, thankful he couldn't see me. Mark, I'm not sure what you're talking about. We have the joint checking account, which you already emptied. The rest? They're held in trusts and other legal protections. Tax and estate planning, remember? You signed the papers. What papers? What are you talking about? The trust forms. The asset protection paperwork. The estate planning changes. We talked about all this. You said you trusted my decisions and didn't need to go over the details. I could hear his breathing pick up. Lena, I need access to that money. Right now. I'm sorry, but that's not how trusts work, Mark. The money is protected. You can't just take it out. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer about what you can do. The next morning, I woke up in my beautiful, now legally protected home and went through my usual routine, coffee, the morning news, a hot shower, then got dressed in my favorite navy blue suit. It was Wednesday, and I had a full calendar of client meetings ahead. My phone had been buzzing all night, but I left it on silent. When I finally checked it over breakfast, I saw 17 missed calls and a bunch of texts from Mark, getting more and more desperate. Lena, call me back now. This is insane. I need money. You can't do this. We're still married. You're just trying to punish me. This is childish. Bella and I are stuck in a hotel. Do you know how expensive LA is? Call me or I'm hiring a lawyer. I didn't respond. I just deleted the messages and headed to work at Bridgeview Financial. Was nonstop that morning. I was reviewing portfolios for 3 high-net-worth clients. Ironically, one of them was in the middle of a divorce and needed help protecting their assets from a spouse who had been quietly draining their accounts. Thanks to what I'd just gone through, I could now speak from personal experience about the importance of planning ahead financially. Around lunch, my assistant buzzed into my office. Lena, there's a Mark James online too. He says he's your husband and says it's urgent. Please let him know I'm in meetings all day, I said calmly, and that I don't take personal calls during business hours. If he keeps calling, tell him he can speak with my lawyer. About an hour later, Nina Lee called. Lena, I just got an interesting call from a lawyer out in Los Angeles. His name is Tom Green, and apparently he's now representing your husband. That was fast. What did he want? I asked. He was asking questions about the asset protection plan we set up. And what did you tell him? I told him the truth. That all the assets were moved into proper legal trust structures over the past 3 months, with complete documentation and your husband's implied consent. I leaned back in my chair. And he tried to say that Mark didn't fully understand what he was signing. I reminded him that not reading legal documents before signing them doesn't make them invalid, especially when the person had every chance to be involved in the planning but chose not to. I smiled. Mark had always bragged to people that he didn't have to worry about money stuff because I handled it all. He used to say he was lucky to have a wife who dealt with the boring financials. Now, that same lazy attitude was blowing up in his face. There's more, Nina added. Mr. Green also mentioned that Mark is staying at a hotel in West Hollywood that costs $400 a night. Apparently, he and his girlfriend thought they'd be living the high life by now. $400 a night? How long can $15,000 even last at that rate? Not long, she said. Especially when you add meals, car rentals, and all the other costs of moving to one of the priciest cities in America. I'd give him maybe 2 weeks before he's completely broke. That afternoon, I got an email from a sender I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "From Bella." Curious, I opened it. "Dear Lena, I know this is probably awkward, but Mark says you're being unfair about the divorce. I just want you to know that we're not trying to hurt you. We're in love, and we just want to start our new life together. Can't you please let us have what we need to be happy? Mark says you have more than enough money and that this won't even affect you. Please think about being generous. Bella." Curious, I opened it. "Dear Lena, I know this is probably awkward, but Mark says you're being unfair about the divorce. I just want you to know that we're not trying to hurt you. We're in love, and we just want to start our new life together. Can't you please let us have what we need to be happy? Mark says you have more than enough money and that this won't even affect you. Please think about being generous. Bella." I stared at the message for a moment, then simply deleted it. By Friday of that week, things had gotten even more serious. Nina called me at work with an update that made me sit down. "Lena, Mark's lawyer just filed an emergency motion. They're asking the court to give him temporary spousal support and access to marital funds. They're claiming he's broke and that you've hidden assets to keep him from his fair share. Can they actually do that?" I asked. "They can try. But they've got a few major problems. First, all the transfers were done months before Mark said anything about leaving. That shows this wasn't done just to prepare for divorce. Second, he knew about the financial plans and simply chose not to get involved. Third, and probably most important, he cleaned out the only account you two held jointly, and he said so in writing. That text message is gold." I thought back to his message, still saved in my phone. So that text actually helps us? Absolutely. When someone says they're leaving and that they've already emptied the joint account, it's pretty hard for them to later claim they were cut off financially. He literally boasted about taking the money. That evening, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize, but it had a Los Angeles area code. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Lena, it's me, Bella. Please don't hang up." Her voice was young, nervous, and had a slight southern accent. I stayed quiet, waiting for her to keep talking. "Look, I know you probably hate me. I get it. But Mark is really having a hard time. The hotel kicked us out yesterday after his card got declined. We're staying at a cheap motel now, and honestly, it's scary. He says you're doing this to hurt him, but I don't understand why you won't help us." "Bella," I said calmly, "I just want to ask you something, and I'd like an honest answer. How long have you two been together?" "About 6 months. We met at a real estate conference in Dallas. Mark was charming, classy, nothing like guys my age. He told me he was stuck in an unhappy marriage and that you both were basically living separate lives. 6 months. While Mark had been planning his exit for half a year, I had been protecting our money for 3 months. The timeline made sense now. Did he ever explain our financial situation to you? He said you were rich, that you had investments and property worth millions. He told me once he left you, we'd have enough to live comfortably in Los Angeles. He said we could get a nice apartment in Beverly Hills and that I could finally focus on acting without worrying about bills. I felt a small bit of sympathy for her. She'd been fed the same lies I had once believed. Bella, I need to ask, did Mark ever mention that our money was in trusts? What are trusts? He just said you handled everything and that he'd get his share once he divorced you. He made it sound simple. So, he didn't just lie to me about the affair, he lied to Bella too. She didn't have a clue what the real financial situation was. Bella, I think Mark hasn't been honest with you. The money he took from our joint account? That's probably all he'll ever be able to use. Everything else is locked up in legal trusts. He can't just take it or split it. She went quiet, so quiet I thought she'd hung up. Then finally, in a much softer voice, she asked, So, you're saying we're broke? I'm saying Mark should have told you the truth about how things were set up. That following Monday, I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant let me know Mark was on line 1 again. This time it was a different Los Angeles number. Lena, this has gone far enough, he said. His voice was tired and missing the cocky tone he had when he first sent that text. I need money, and I need it now. Bella and I are living out of a rental car. Do you get that? We're homeless. I set my pen down and leaned back. I'm sorry to hear that, Mark, but I don't know how I'm supposed to help. You chose to leave our marriage and start over in LA. These are the results of your choices. Don't do this. You hid all that money from me on purpose. You planned this. I protected our assets using legal estate planning, just like I do for my clients. You had every chance to be involved, but you didn't want to. You even said, and I quote, that you trusted my judgment and didn't want to deal with it. I want a divorce, Lena, but I want my share. Then go ahead and file. Just know that what you're calling our assets? They're no longer part of the marriage in the traditional way. They're in irrevocable trusts now, with specific rules for how and when the money can be used. What does that even mean? It means you should have paid attention during those meetings instead of watching TV. It means you should have read what you signed instead of calling it boring paperwork. He went silent again. Then, his voice broke into something desperate. Lena, please. I messed up. Bella left me yesterday. She said this isn't the life she thought she was getting. She flew back to Dallas. I'm alone. I'm broke. I don't know what to do. Best wishes, Mark. I hung up. 2 weeks later, I got divorce papers from Mark. He had filed in Los Angeles. Nina looked through them during our meeting at her downtown Chicago office. She couldn't hide her amusement. He's asking for spousal support, half of all marital assets, and even wants damages for what he's calling financial manipulation and deceit, Nina said as she flipped through the papers. His lawyer is claiming you purposely hid the money so he couldn't get his share. What are our chances? I asked. Very good, she said. Mark's own text message, where he said he emptied the joint account, shows he had access to marital funds and chose to take them when he left. Just because he didn't understand your full financial planning doesn't mean the legal structures we created are invalid. Then Nina pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the table. I've prepared our response. We're filing for divorce here in Chicago, where you live and where the house is. We're also asking that Mark return the $15,000 he took from the joint account, with interest. Can we actually get that money back? Probably not, she admitted. But it sets the record straight. He's the one who took marital funds inappropriately, not you. About a month later, Mark called one last time. His voice sounded completely different, weak and tired. Lena, I'm coming back to Chicago. I can't afford to stay in Los Angeles anymore. My lawyer says it'll be easier to settle the divorce if I'm in the same state. That's your decision, Mark. I just want you to know. I get it now. What you did, it was actually really smart. I didn't see it coming. I totally underestimated you. I just did what I do for my clients every day. Protected the assets. You just didn't pay attention when you should have. Can we work something out? A deal? Something that doesn't leave me with absolutely nothing. Talk to your lawyer, Mark. From now on, all communication goes through legal channels. I hung up the phone and went back to my work, feeling truly free for the first time in months. 6 months after Mark's text message, our divorce was finalized. He got a small settlement, just enough to start over, but nowhere near the millions he had been counting on. I kept the house. I kept most of the investments. And most importantly, I kept my freedom. As I sat in the same home office where I had planned every step of this, I thought about how powerful quiet patience can be. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being more prepared than the person who thought you were weak.